Breaking news. A major setback has just hit the Las Vegas Raiders, and it could change everything for their season. Reports confirm that star left tackle Kolton Miller is facing a much tougher road than anyone expected. What first looked like a simple injury has turned out to be far more serious. But before we dive into the full details of this breaking story, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss the latest NFL updates. Now, let's get straight to the news. According to multiple reports, including insider Ian Rappaport, Kolton Miller's injury is not just a high ankle sprain as initially believed. Further testing revealed a hairline fracture along with that sprain, making the situation much worse. For context, players like Joe Alt, Tyler Booker, and Cooper Beebe are also dealing with high ankle sprains right now, but those are expected to heal within 3 to 6 weeks. Miller's case is different. The combination of a fracture and the sprain makes recovery far more complicated. Experts say there are different types of hairline fractures. A mild one might allow a return in about 6 weeks. But when it's tied to a high ankle sprain, recovery can stretch out much longer. In Miller's case, the Raiders are looking at a timeline of 10 to 14 weeks before he can realistically return to the field. This is a crushing blow for the Raiders' offensive line and could have a huge impact on the team's season moving forward. Now let's think about the timeline. Even in the best-case scenario, Kolton Miller would need around 10 weeks to recover. That means the earliest possible return would be Week 15. But here's the big question, does it even make sense to bring him back at that point? If the Raiders are fighting for a playoff spot, then yes, it's worth it. But if the team is sitting at something like 3 to 12, bringing Miller back would serve no purpose. At that stage, it's smarter to shut him down for the rest of the season and protect his long-term health. We've seen this before. Remember last season when the Raiders had the chance to bring back Christian Wilkins? They didn't, because the team wasn't in contention. Miller now finds himself in that same situation. What makes this so frustrating is that Miller had finally put past injuries behind him. A few years ago, he dealt with a serious shoulder issue that he chose not to correct right away. That decision cost him, as he ended up missing nearly a third of that season. Eventually, he had surgery, and while the next season started slow, he finished strong. Coming into this year, Miller was finally 100% healthy, and his play showed it. Many analysts had him ranked as a top 10 offensive tackle, anchoring the Raiders' offensive line. That makes this injury even more devastating for both the player and the team. Before this injury, you could easily argue Kolton Miller was performing like a top 5 tackle in the entire league. His footwork was clean, his technique smooth, and he moved with the kind of fluidity you rarely see in someone his size. At just under 30 years old, Miller still had 5 to 6 prime years left in his career. That's what makes this setback so frustrating. This wasn't about poor conditioning or decline, it was simply bad luck. High ankle sprains happen when a lineman gets rolled up on, and no amount of preparation can truly prevent it. The problem now isn't just losing Miller. It's what comes next. The Raiders had already been rotating depth at tackle. Thayer Munford was tried as the swing option, but he struggled. That led the team to bring in Stone Forsythe. On paper, Forsythe looks the part, he's massive, similar in size to Miller. But when you watch the tape, the difference is obvious. Miller moves like an elite athlete for his size, Forsythe doesn't. He flashes at times, but too often loses battles he should win. And this puts the Raiders in a dangerous spot. With Miller out, the left tackle position becomes a clear target for opposing defenses. We've already seen rookie DJ Glaze needing extra help on his side, double teams, chip blocks, and protection schemes just to keep him steady. Now, with a third-string option at left tackle, that kind of help won't always be possible. Teams like the Colts will waste no time attacking that weakness over and over again. This makes the situation even more painful for the Raiders, because the timing couldn't be worse. The team is sitting at 1-3, heading into a crucial stretch of the season. Every game from here matters, and losing a cornerstone like Kolton Miller right now creates a massive challenge. The truth is, the Raiders still have enough talent to compete. With playmakers at key positions, a quarterback who's shown he can deliver in the past, and an offensive coordinator who knows how to scheme effectively, this team has the tools to beat the Colts, the Titans, and yes, even the Chiefs. None of those victories would shock anyone. But here's the problem, all of that potential success now has to happen without their best offensive lineman. Miller has been nothing short of dominant this year. In fact, he wasn't just steady, he was playing at a truly elite level. Through the first 4 games, he barely lost snaps in one-on-one battles. He looked stronger, sharper, and more polished than at any point in his career. It was clear he put in serious work during the off-season, and the results were showing every single Sunday. And just as he was taking that next step into greatness, this injury struck. For the Raiders, it's not just the loss of a player, it's the loss of momentum, stability, and leadership right when the season is hanging in the balance. Kolton Miller wasn't just protecting the quarterback, he was the engine behind the Raiders' running game. Every time the ground attack found success, it was usually because Miller was clearing the way. Ashton Jeanty's 64-yard burst. That came right behind Miller. Raheem Mostert's 37-yard dash. Same story. He was driving defenders out of their lanes and creating space that simply wouldn't have existed otherwise. That's why his absence is such a massive blow. The drop-off from Miller to Stone Forsythe isn't just about pass protection, it's about losing that physical dominance in the run game. Forsythe has size, no doubt, but when you study his tape, one issue stands out, he doesn't generate movement at the line of scrimmage. Because of his height, leverage becomes a problem. Instead of driving defenders back, he often gets stood up, which means those inside and outside zone runs stall quickly. When Miller was in, he could seal off defenders and open lanes for big plays. With Forsythe, you're more likely to see contact without progress, no push, no gap, no daylight for the running backs. Now, there is still a chance that Charles Grant could get worked into the rotation if Forsythe struggles. But either way, the Raiders are losing the kind of run-blocking presence that doesn't just show up on stat sheets, it completely changes how an offense operates. Losing Kolton Miller doesn't just weaken pass protection, it makes the run game far more complicated. That's exactly why some believe Charles Grant deserves a real shot at this role. Unlike Forsythe, Grant has the kind of raw strength to move defenders at the point of attack, something the Raiders desperately need. What's frustrating is that this situation could have been avoided. Weeks ago, it already felt clear that DJ Glaze wasn't the long-term answer, and the interior of the line has been shaky at best. That was the perfect time to start working Grant into real game reps. Yes, he's inexperienced, but his upside is far higher than what the team is currently getting from players like Alex Kappa or even Dylan Parham. Parham has had a few solid moments, but consistency hasn't been there. Against the league's top interior defenders, guys like DeForest Buckner, Jeffrey Simmons, and soon Chris Jones, those weaknesses get exposed quickly. And they will, if changes aren't made. Grant might not be polished yet, but the ceiling is there. He has the potential to grow into a cornerstone, and giving him live snaps now could pay off in both the short term and the long run. If the Raiders keep relying on the same rotation, they risk falling into the same predictable problems, game after game. The last thing the Raiders can afford right now is stubborn decision-making. We've already seen games where the offensive line struggled and no adjustments were made until it was too late. That cannot happen again. If Forsythe starts and looks shaky for even a half, the Raiders need to be ready to make the switch immediately and give Charles Grant his shot. Yes, the rookie would likely have growing pains. He might even give up sacks early on. But with live reps, he will adjust, and by mid-season, he could be playing at a completely different level. That experience could turn him into a long-term solution at tackle, something the Raiders desperately need with Miller sidelined. And the upside is clear. Grant has the frame, the length, and the athletic movement you see in today's best young tackles across the league. Players like Olu Fashanu in Washington or Bernhard Raimann in Indianapolis have that same mix of size and mobility, and Grant shows flashes of it as well. With time and development, he could grow into the kind of franchise cornerstone the Raiders can rely on for years to come. The bottom line is simple, Kolton Miller's loss is devastating, but it also opens the door for the next man up. Whether it's Forsythe or Grant, the Raiders must act fast, because the season is slipping away, and every decision from here on out will shape not only this year, but the future of the franchise. At the end of the day, this is heartbreaking news for the Raiders. Kolton Miller was playing the best football of his career, and now the team must move forward without him. Unless something changes in the medical updates, all signs point to a lengthy recovery that keeps him out deep into the season. Of course, fans can always hope for a surprise. Sometimes tests reveal better news than first feared, but the reality here feels grim. With Ian Rappaport confirming both the high ankle sprain and the fracture, the odds of a quick return are slim. That leaves the Raiders with decisions to make. Do they ride with Forsyth, or do they throw Charles Grant into the fire and let him grow through live reps? The answer could shape not just this season, but the team's long-term future. And while this setback hurts, it's also an opportunity. Just as young players like Dante Thornton are being given time to develop, Grant deserves that same chance. The only way to find out what he can become is to put him on the field. For now, the focus turns to survival, adjusting, adapting, and finding a way to compete without their cornerstone left tackle. The Raiders' response to this adversity will tell us everything about who they really are as a team this season.